It's time for Remodel Revolution. And now, an award-winning contractor with over 40 years experience. Here is Alex Guthrie.
Welcome to another episode of Remodel Revolution. This is the show where there is no politics, no sports, and no mean people. We're coming to you from the world headquarters of Remodel Revolution, right here in the heart, deep in the heart of the great state of Texas. And we're going to have a fantastic show today. I'm so excited. We were going to do it last week, but last week we had issues. We had technical issues. So here we are this week. And I'm so happy to tell you that I have my two very good friends of mine, people that I really adore, Kimba Garcia with RKG Roofing. We're going to talk about winterizing your roof and other things to look for before this cold, wet season actually comes and stays. And also we're going to talk to Barry Johnson with he's a nursery. He owns a nursery. He's a landscaper. And Barry is going to talk to us about winter plantings. And one of the things I wanted to talk to him about was things that we can plant on the outside so that during the winter we're looking at something green and not just stuff that's brown. And so we're going to talk about some seasonal plantings. So first, I want to introduce my first guest today, Miss Kimba Garcia. Good morning, Kimba.
Good morning, Alex. How's it going? Thanks for having me on today. I'm excited to be back.
It's always fun having you. Always fun. You're an amazing lady.
Thank you so much.
And tell us a little bit about RKG Roofing. How long have you been in business? And you've really created a thriving business through your hard work, your social media, and mostly you're a hustling girl.
I am, Alex. You know, I grew up with humble beginnings, and the ethics of hard work and determination were instilled in me young. So I pour all that over into what we do here at RKG. So we've been in business for about 4.5 years now. In that time frame, we've been able to scale from literally zero. We started this company with nothing, and we've been able to scale up. By the end of 2020, I may be at 8 figures, but if not quite, sitting right there. So we've been able to scale and grow a lot over the last 4 years. And like you said, that's had a lot to do with social media and also the culture that we've been able to build inside of our company. So I'm really proud of our culture, what our company stands for, because as I always say, we're not just a roofing company. We also get out and get involved with the community, do some community give backs. And I'm really passionate about those type of projects, especially in difficult years like everybody's had here in 2020.
Boy, no kidding. Let's just hope 2020 finally ends. and a comet doesn't hit.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And if that's the case, if a comet hits your roof, I can help through the insurance.
You have a special comet incentive going, do you?
Yeah. As long as you don't have a comet exclusion in the policy, we should be fine.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, what I wanted to talk about today is sort of what I'm calling winterizing your roof. And that would mostly be having someone like RKG come up and check your roof and some of the things that people need to be aware of. Now, I run into this constantly when I'm looking at houses and I might be doing an addition. I looked at one recently and we got up on a roof. I didn't, the roofer did. And it has some metal components to it, like a flat part of the roof that's standing seam galvanized that's 60 years old, and galvanized valleys and things that the way we used to do them with metal. And of course it's rusting and it's old and it's starting to, you can see through it in some places. And so that becomes a big expense for these people. So the question is, or the point of this program is to we want to ask you what people should look for or have their roofer look for so that they don't end up with puddles of water in the middle of the night, Thanksgiving.
Yes. And I loved when you told me the topic of this show, because I think a lot of people, they know that in the spring when all the storms are happening that they probably need to get their roof licked up. But by the time we get to this season, that's kind of been out of sight, out of mind, and they're not really worried about it anymore. And that becomes a problem because we still do have precipitation in the winter months. And so it's very important that we keep our roof protected. Up north, they obviously have a lot more snow and ice that sits on their roof and melts down. But here in Texas, we know we still get rain, we still get sleet and ice that can still, water can still freeze up on our roof, eventually melt, and we can run into some leak hazards. So I love that you mentioned metal, because the beautiful thing right now is whenever you get a roof replacement, as long as you're using a good reputable contractor, most of us do go back on with a product called Ice and Water Shield nowadays. And so you notice it's ice and water shield there, because when that ice melts, it also can end up in the attic. And so what this product is, Alex, is it's a self-sealing man-made membrane. And it's really nice because it doesn't corrode like the metal does or get that rust and those holes like you were talking about. And so that's one of the things that at my company, I know we always upgrade our flashings to that for free, because we don't want to have to come back and deal with leaks. The places like valleys, around penetrations, like we're showing here, chimneys, pipe jacks, different components like that on your roof, Ice and Water Shield should also go around those so that all the weak spots of the roof are protected.
Well, one of the things that brought me up to this was this very picture right here, and this is chimney flashing, which you can look at this chimney right here, and you can tell that either the husband or the yard man went up and did the chimney. Now, I love husbands and yard men, so this, no offense.
Yes.
But the next person that gets the phone call is me to come in and fix the water damage. And then I call you, and you go, "What did you do?"
Yeah, that was a rough one. But hey, people don't know what they don't know, so that's what they need shows like this for, because they're getting some consumer education out there.
Right.
And what I really want to leave our audience with, anybody that's tuning in today, is that understand that the storm damage that was created earlier in the year, even earlier this month, as far as here in DFW goes, this damage continues to deteriorate and it continues to break down as more storms come. So we end up with one small place, but as more storms come and heat and asphalt gets exposed, these things start to break down from that damage that originally happened in a storm, maybe a few months ago, maybe a few weeks ago. And so a lot of times leaks do come as a surprise to people because they didn't know that they had the damage up there that was going to eventually cause this. And the reason that it's so important that you get it checked on ASAP is because you only have a limited time to cover that through your insurance carrier. And as you mentioned, Alex, this can get expensive. So you want to utilize your insurance coverage for that storm damage if you can and while you can, to go ahead and get in front of these issues before you do end up with water when you're trying to have the family over for Thanksgiving and things like that.
Let's talk a little bit about gutters, because there's some signs. there's some signs that you're having a problem, but sometimes you need to look up, and sometimes you have to look down. One of we're going to talk about gutters here, but one of the things I wanted to talk about is some of the things that you can see to recognize that you may be having a problem with your roof. And one of the things that comes to mind, of course, is if you see little pieces of shingles in the yard.
Yes, if we have pieces of shingles in the yard, we probably should have already done something. Probably already should have had it looked at, but as well as just the granules that are coming down the gutters, because hail will impact the shingle, knock the granules loose. And as rain comes, you're going to start to see those granules actually coming down the gutters. And, you might notice the pictures that you posted were pretty extreme and pretty noticeable. What people might not notice are smaller little cosmetic dings in the gutters. And if those dings are in your gutters, they're also on the shingle that's protecting the decking and the rafters and the wooden components of the home. So that is a great indication to be able to know, hey, if I have damage, if I have hail dings on the metal from my gutters, it's on the shingles too.
We are going to take a quick break. Will you stay with us through this break? I have some more things I want to cover. Great. That's fantastic.
Sure.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with Kimba, and we're going to talk about a little more about gutters, a little more about shingles, and then some of the effects some of the things that happen when a gutter overflows. There's other things that it affects on your house that may be not quite as noticeable, maybe little things we're going to talk about you can look at that you're kind of used to seeing, but when you're seeing it, it's an indicator of a problem. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. The hardest working and arguably most important system in our homes is our air conditioning and heating system. It heats the air, it cools the air, and it filters the air. That's why it's so critical to have it checked and maintained by the very best professionals available. It's time to contact Total Air and Heat at totalair.com. Get that system pruned and tuned. If you want to have the very best experience, you've got to hire the very best company. Total Air's employees are honest, well-trained, and thoroughly background checked. I never have to worry about sending their technicians out to my clients' homes. Family owned and operated for 3 generations, Total Air and Heat has been a fixture in North Dallas for over 60 years. Total Air is a proud dealer of the Trane air conditioning systems, and you know how hard it is to stop a Trane, so give them a call at 972-881-0020. That's 972-881-0020, or contact them at totalair.com today. So every now and then, I'll be standing outside of somebody's house and I'll look up at the gutters and I'll see trees growing, or I'll see various forms of wildlife inhabiting the gutter. Sometimes you can hear the little rats running down it. So I thought, today we're going to get Kimba Garcia on here, and we're going to talk about, with RKG Roofing, we're going to talk about some of the things that you need to do to get ready for winter, and Kimba, this is great advice you gave. When you're getting ready for winter, you're also getting ready for spring, which is the real rainy season, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's important that we keep our roofs protected 12 months, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at a gutter and you see a little drip of water coming out the corner, that's pretty normal. A lot of people will go, oh, look, in fact, they don't even think about it. They just go, oh, I got this little bitty drip coming out of my gutter. Mm-hmm. Now, when you and I look at that, we look at a remodel.
Yeah.
Because what that's telling us is that the gutter's holding water. And if the gutter's not draining properly and it's holding water, then the next big rainstorm, probably that gutter's going to overflow, and it's going to flood back into the eaves of the house. It can go into the wall. There's all kinds of things that can happen. Mm-hmm. So do you recommend that your clients have a gutter specialist come over maybe once a year, go to their house and check the gutters and clean them and things like that?
I absolutely think that you need to have your gutters cleaned out, whether you get up there and do that yourself or have a professional come out. The thing that our audience needs to keep in mind is that this is a game of water runoff, right? So the roof's job is to expel the water so that it does not end up inside the home. And then the gutter's job is to finish, allowing that to go down. So like you mentioned, whenever the gutters, they get clogged with leaves and all these different kinds of debris that ends up getting in there, and the water can run up and actually get back up underneath the shingle, down into the fascia and soffit, start to create wood rot there. And then like you said, once water penetrates into the home, it's doing nothing but creeping farther and farther and doing more and more damage and deterioration. And
it grows. It grows. And what happens is there's a process that we all know if we've ever walked in the forest, dry rot. And that's where you see wood that's literally rotting and turning into dirt. And that's a fungus, and it's just doing its job. It's creating the dirt that we walk on. And this can get in your walls. It can get anywhere that there's wood. Any cellulose material can get this fungus. And so you have to deal with it. It really is only activated by moisture, but it can be there for years until it gets wet. So let's talk about let's talk about another thing. I want to tell you the story, a quick story about something that happened with a client of mine last year. They started seeing all kinds of water damage in their eaves. They had real big eaves on their house. And we went up and we tried and tried and tried to find a leak and could not. And it started showing up all around the house. And so I knew immediately that the roof was failing. But you couldn't just look at it and go, wow, you didn't see holes in it. You didn't see missing missing nails. It ends up, I think that it was hail damage, which is sometimes not as obvious as, like missing shingles, obviously. How do you, or what do you recommend to people? Do you need to have your roof inspected? Just have someone like you come up and just walk the roof and look it over?
That's exactly what you need to do. And the reason is that it honestly, even my new people that I bring in and start training them on this industry, it takes them about 6 months of class time to really be able to determine the difference in hail damage, mechanical damage, what the carrier considers storm damage. And that's the thing about wind and hail damage, Alex, is that people will see the missing shingle and they'll think that's the big deal, to where that secret snake in the grass that's the hail damage covering your whole roof is actually a lot more critical to water being able to get into your home and start to cause some of these issues that you were talking about. So I recommend that people have somebody in a company, not just a roofer, a storm restoration company, somebody that specializes in storm damage, because it takes a trained eye to know what you're looking for. So your average homeowner, one, it's kind of dangerous. I don't suggest people get up there climbing around on the roof, right? I've had training, my team's had training in how to be safe in climbing up on the roof, but as well as what you're looking at. I mean, even if you safely got up there, would you know what you were looking for? And the answer to that is likely no.
Well,
it's very inconspicuous.
And the other part of this equation, as far as having a professional, is that the biggest element is somebody has to deal with the insurance company. Somebody has to know how to communicate with them, what they're looking for, etc.
No, you're 1,000% right. So I'm actually, super quick story, RKG just got in with Hippo, and we've been accredited through Hippo. So we actually go out and do their adjustments for them. But one of the reasons why they're choosing to use us for this program is because we know the exact documentation that they need. We know how to write these estimates up the way that they're looking for. Whenever you're trying to get coverage through your insurance carrier, things have to be done in accordance to the law. T's have to be crossed, I's have to be dotted, but that's what we do every day. So it's not a big deal to me or to my team, but for somebody that's never done that before, there are ways that they can risk losing coverage just because one of those T's wasn't crossed and I wasn't dotted. And what I mean by that is the photo documentation, the reports, and the estimates, the way that the insurance carrier likes to see those read so that they can expedite the process on their end for the homeowner and be able to get them the coverage that they deserve. But that starts with a contractor who's competent in storm claims specifically.
Well, and hey, roofs aren't cheap. This is not an expensive endeavor. And you also have to be careful about who you hire because there's so many parts to it. There's the demolition, what you find often, way more often than people understand. You and I uncover a roof and we're doing a whole lot more than fixing the roof. We're fixing the decking, we're fixing the flashing. There's just a lot more to it. So for our winter examination, we've got about 2 minutes left. For our winter checkup, we want to check for rusted flash, like if it's an old roof and has metal flashing, rusted flashing, that's pretty obvious. The chimney caps. Now let's talk a little bit about plumbing stacks and explain what they are and why it's so vital that they be done correctly.
That the plumbing stacks are what's going to let the gas and really help ventilate the home out. And so, it's important that that's really all I know. You need to ventilate the gas and all the things out of your home. And so we have to check all the penetrations down to the ventilation, like you said, the flashing. One of the things that I'm seeing when we're tearing into roofs is also out of code decking. I know a lot of contractors kind of get stuck right there. They don't know how to get the carrier to pay for that. And it ends up costing the homeowner a couple $1,000s because the city requires that they bring it up to code. And so like you said, there's multiple different components to that. The plumbing stacks definitely being a big one, just so we can make sure that we're getting gases and things like that that are put off, out of.
Well, and making sure that they're properly flashed was sort of my point, because
Gotcha.
I see them where they've just got black goop around them or something, where they've been just kind of rigged up because maybe they were leaking. One of the ways you figure that out is you go up in your attic during a rainstorm and see if water's dripping down one of those stacks. It's not uncommon because they're up there for the life of the house. Kimba, you are so amazing. I'm so proud of you and your husband and what you've done in just a short time we've known each other. And I hope you'll come back and do another one of these epic interviews during the spring tornado season.
No, thank you for having me. I always enjoy getting to do these. It's fun to get to come on and talk about things that you're passionate about, and especially the things that not everybody knows. So I appreciate you having this show and bringing this value to people, because it just tuning into your show could save people thousands of dollars. They just don't even know yet.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kimba. Have a wonderful day.
You too, Alex. I'll see y'all soon.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Barry Johnson, and we're going to talk about seasonal plantings and maybe trees that you can plant that are going to turn beautiful in the fall. Who knows? We'll give that a shot. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Imagine this, a totally customized, organized, and beautiful master closet. A home office that fits right into a perfect space. A pantry designed specifically for your storage needs. Imagine your home totally organized. It's time to call the design professionals at Closets by Design DFW and turn your dreams into a reality. With a design staff over 30 strong, Closets by Design works directly with you to create your dream space, and they build it locally, helping support the DFW community. Check them out at dallas.closetsbydesign.com or call them at 972-361-0010. Use the promo code RRV to find out about the amazing specials and discounts available. That's dallas.closetsbydesign.com or call them at 972-361-0010, and don't forget that promo code RRV. Closets by Design. Well, this is the time of year when I noticed in the last 3 or 4 days that every leaf in the neighborhood blew off the trees and landed in my yard. In the neighborhood, every one of them. There's so many leaves in my yard that the squirrels can't find the food I put out for them. And they're coming up to the back door and saying, "Hey, Alex, come on, feed us, man. We're starving." And so I thought, I'm going to call Barry Johnson, Blooming Colors Nursery, right there in Flower Mound, and we're going to talk about some plantings that when you look out your window, instead of big piles of leaves that need to be raked, we want to look at beautiful red, orange, beautiful colors, and maybe some things that we can plant during the winter. So when we look outside our window, we don't see a dead garden, we see a living garden. Hello, Mr. Johnson. Well, we're having audio issues with Barry. He's been trying really hard. And so we do have some pictures, and I'm going to put some up, and we're going to talk about some of these plantings, some of these trees that can be planted during the winter. So, Jason, let's rock on here.
Hold on a second. We're trying something here.
Hang on a minute, folks. We got a little we're trying some technical stuff here. There he is.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. Hey.
Hey, how are you doing?
We're doing great. Got a little echo going. But I'm sure Jason can work through that. Good morning, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. How are you?
All right. Doing super. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you could make it. Glad I can hear you. It's going to be so much better if we have a real expert talking about this instead of me. So, Barry, let's talk about some planting and some things you can do in a garden, ornamental garden, that could maybe get you through the winter where you're looking at some color instead of just dirt.
Yes, there's really kind of two ways to go about it. One is seasonal, things that will just bloom and last during the winter. And then when the summer heat goes, you change them out. And then there's other things like different trees that have berries, like the possum holly and the sumac, and a lot of the fall color trees that you see right now that'll give you some fall color, and some that'll bloom through a lot of the winter.
And what about ground cover? Is there any sort of ground cover that people can plant that'll hold up, or ivies or anything like that?
Well, it's a great time to plant because things go in, they're dormant, they root out, but they really won't start to grow, and you won't get a lot of visual until the spring.
Uh-huh.
So while there are some ground covers that have some fall color, you really, if you planted them now, they wouldn't really help you till.
Well, what
till
are some
year.
of the things that we should be planting now to get ready for the spring?
Well, the right now, you see a lot of people changing out to pansies. They bloom all winter. Alyssum and snapdragons and winter kale also bloom a lot of the winter time. And one of the secrets is this month and next month you plant spring tulips. You get pre-chilled tulips that have been below 40 degrees for 30 days. Most nurseries like ours have those. You plant them in and among your pansies, and they come up in late March and April, depending upon the variety. And that's what you see back then, is people planting in November and December for a big spring show of tulips.
And are those perennials, or do you have to replant them every year?
You have to replant them. They're how I fund my college kids' college funds. You pull those up. They're a one-shot deal. Things like daffodils will come back a lot more. They come in white and they come in yellow, but the tulips are really the big show and such a great color. It's really relatively inexpensive to do and fun to do to plant. There's a picture of daffodils that are coming up.
Oh, they're so
and those
pretty.
Come up
yeah.
Every year and multiply and kind of have naturalized in that area of South Lake.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. Well, I love, of course, we all love the early spring flowers. It's an indicator of the season changing, and it takes that gray out of your life and brings color into our lives again. So that's really wonderful. Part of the thing that happens is we lose our leaves right now, and everything just gets bare and kind of depressing. And so I was curious about, we touched on it briefly, but curious about plantings that get me through the winter. I'm thinking, like, if I'm sitting in my den and I'm looking out the back, let's say I've got an outdoor living area, and I have something that might not be getting that north wind. Is there something that can handle a little bit of cool and not, that might survive the winter and give me a little color?
Well, there's not any type of perennials. There's one obscure perennial called a Bowles wallflower that'll bloom in December or so, but it's pretty minor. The pansies and the seasonal color and the kale that we mentioned does good.
Mm-hmm.
What I like to do at my house is one that I mentioned is the possum holly. That's basically a yopon holly that loses its leaves, but it keeps all of its red berries all winter. And so when you look out, you see, and you'll see them along the side of the roads. They're a native to this area.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing
we used to call them, hunters call them turkey berries.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And they come, Warren's red is a really good red variety. They come in orange as well, but they're just starting to show their color. Another one is you have to have some afternoon shade and you have to give it a little extra care, but camellias and sasanquas are an evergreen shrub that likes acidic soil. but you'll normally get them to bloom in December and January. It's one of the few shrubs that blooms then. You'll see them at our nursery here. There's a specific variety called Yuletide, which is a red bloom, and it blooms against that green background, and it's very Christmassy.
Barry, how do we prep? What's the best way to start prepping, and what should we be doing right now to prep for the first blooms in spring?
The best thing right now is to put on a new layer of mulch. It's too late to fertilize. It's too late to trim anything. Putting a new fresh layer of thick mulch on all your beds is like putting a blanket over your kids at night. That's the best thing. And then the other thing you could do is plan for some of those early spring bloomers that you mentioned. Forsythia is the one that blooms yellow first. Mexican plum is that tree that blooms white really, really early in February. There's a lot of early bloomers that kind of bloom at the end of winter, very early spring that really brighten up our January and February.
What about watering? Do we need to worry about if we don't see it growing? Do we need to worry about watering it?
Right now, we're in a little bit of a dry period. We recommend that you still test the soil with your finger, and if it's not moist, that you do a watering. But normally during the winter, either have your sprinkler system off or run it once a week is plenty. There's no growing that's going to go on here above ground, but the roots will grow all winter and really support it for that spring flush. So it's good to keep things moist, but there's really not a lot of watering that needs to be done. We should be getting our winter rains here soon.
Yeah, in theory. Let's talk about trimming trees and shrubs, because I know mine have started kind of looking like they were rock and roll heroes from the 70s. And so, well, actually the 90s, the hair bands of the 90s. And so is this a good time to trim trees? And I've always, we were always told when we were kids, when the leaves fall off, trim those limbs because they're dormant. Is that true?
With an addition on that, one thing you need to, we're kind of in an in-between time right now where if you trim and then we get a little bit of a warm up, it could fool the plant into starting to sprout growth, and we don't want that. As the old timers used to say, you want the sap to drop. So it'd be better to wait to trim if you have, once we have a nice good freeze, something around 30 degrees and the plant is truly dormant. That's the better time to do it. You won't really damage anything long term if you did some trimming now, if you just had to. The other thing to watch is be careful about trimming your spring blooming plants because their buds are already set. They're things like azaleas and Indian hawthorn and everything that blooms in the spring has its buds set, and you'll be trimming off those blooms. You'll get less blooms if you trim right now.
So if we trim limbs off of a tree, do we need to seal the end at where we've cut it? Is that necessary?
It's not. Texas A&M Extension Service and Texas A&M University recommend that you just let the plant heal itself. Sometimes that pruning paint will actually keep the wound open a little bit longer. But for most cases in most areas, we recommend just to trim, let the plant heal over, and it's really easy.
Well, I mean, when you say wound, you're indicating to me that I've cut off its poor arm. I guess that's what it, and I know it really is a wound, but you made me feel guilty for cutting it. It didn't, at least it didn't scream. And then I'm going to ask you something that I know you're very passionate about, and that is how to trim crepe myrtles, because I see some pretty extreme cutting back of crepe myrtles. And I've always wondered, I know there's a couple of people around Dallas that have very strong opinions about that. What is your opinion? Do you cut them back to the nub?
Well, no, you sure don't. I fall in line with the Crepe Myrtle Society of America and also Neil Sperry. And the answer about trimming crepe myrtles is don't. They'll bloom better. They'll be prettier. The only trimming that we recommend on crepe myrtles is the base of them. If any suckers comes up, to make them a tree form. But the basic rule of thumb is on a crepe myrtle, don't trim anything greater than a pencil width, because you will create a really ugly part of the tree that really doesn't ever recover.
Kind of looks like a club growing out of the ground.
It does. It creates a little octopus, and
Yeah.
it's really, really ugly. And I still see it today.
I do too.
All over the Metroplex.
Yeah.
And if your crepe myrtle is too tall, then you pick the wrong size. There's crepe myrtles that grow from 2 feet all the way to 30 feet in the area. We have a full selection here at Blooming Colors of all the different colors and sizes, and you can pick one that you never have to trim.
How fast do they grow? Because I'm thinking about planting some.
Crepe myrtles are a relatively quick grower. They're considered a subtropical, and they'll grow depending upon the weather and the rain and their care and how much sun they get. They can easily grow from 4 to 12 inches a year.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Barry, we really, really appreciate you coming on with us. Tell everybody how to find you.
Yes, we're Blooming Colors Nursery. You can find us at www.bloomingcolorsnursery.com. We're located in Grapevine, Texas, not Flower Mound.
Oh, man, I'm so sorry about that. I sent everybody to the wrong part of town.
Yeah, there's no nurseries up there. But we're at 2221 Ira E. Woods in Grapevine. That's Highway 26, right across the street from the big Sam's and Walmart and the Target. We're right there. Big sign out front. We have 4 acres of trees and shrubs where we have our fresh cut Christmas trees coming in now. And it's just a
How
great
long have
place
you
to bring
been in
families.
business? How long have you been in business here?
I don't look it, but I've been in business 28 years.
You don't look it at all, Barry. You don't. You know, I mean, you must have started when you were 10 years old, brother.
Yeah,
But
you
I
went the
think
right way with that.
Barry has been a big supporter of all of my media career, which is almost 20 years now. And so I really appreciate you so much, sir. And thank you for coming on and sharing your time and knowledge with us.
You bet. It's been fun. Hope to see you at the nursery.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. We'll see you soon. That was Barry Johnson with Blooming Colors Nursery. I want to thank Barry and thank Kimba Garcia of RKG Roofing. And we had a few technical little glitches today, but that's okay. We're working through them. We've upgraded our studio, and in the future, we're going to be able to take your comments live on Facebook during the show. So we're going to have all that set up in our next show. And we really appreciate you, our audience. We appreciate, of course, our sponsors. And we look forward to seeing you next week. This is Alex Guthrie signing off for Remodel Revolution.
The views and opinions of this program are for educational and entertainment purposes only and are not intended to replace the recommendations of a hired professional. You can catch Remodel Revolution anytime. Follow the show on the website, remodelrevolutionradio.com, or on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, using the handle at Remodel Revolution Radio. You can always listen to the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn, and watch the show anytime on YouTube.